Hey there, it's Adrienne with A Child's Light, empowering children and those who love them. I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't even want to say thinking, I've just been contemplating and allowing this flow of feelings and thoughts to kind of come over me about anxiety and um, parenting and our children and control and just all these different I don't know what the word is. Beliefs, ideas. I don't know. So what's been coming up really strong is this whole question of like what makes us as parents or teachers or people who work with children, what makes parents, teachers, and those who work with children, grandparents, anyone who is guiding, rearing, loving, being with children, working with children, what makes us feel that we have to take over and take control and tell them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what's best. This is the proper way. This is the best way to be. Be sorry for your actions and like, I don't like what you're wearing. That isn't safe for you. Those kinds of things. I understand that as a parent, we want to keep our children safe. And we don't want our children running across the road into danger or talking to someone who could potentially hurt them or, people that they don't know, strangers. Or we don't want our children to fail. We want them to get good grades and be the best and do their best. And we want that, we want that, we want that. We want that for ourselves too, or are we easier on ourselves than our children? I think it's a bag of mixtures of it all. I feel like some of us as parents, teachers, and grandparents, and counselors, and summer camp teachers, and all of us, I feel like some of us are easier on our children than ourselves. Some of us are harder on our children than on ourselves. And some of us go easy on both of us, on our children and ourselves. It's just what makes that happen, though. What makes us believe that we have to be that person, that the one in charge. I don't know. I mean, I can look at it from so many different angles. So as the parent, I take parenting very seriously. It's a very proud part of my life. I'm very proud of myself as the type of parent I am and the choices that I've made. I also am very hard on myself as a parent a lot of times. I'm sure you can relate, right? There are certainly people out there who can relate for sure. And I feel that what I loved about being a child with my parents was that my parents gave me the space to make my own choices and held the space for me to come to them when I needed them. Even if my choices were not what they would have chosen for me. I mean, they still do this as an adult. Well, my mother is no longer here, but my father still, and when my mother was alive, still, as a grown-up, this was their way. This is what Adrienne chooses, so we're going to support her. Even if it's not something that we believe in, even if we are afraid for her, even if we, want something different for her, we will support her. That's how my parents were most of the time, not always, but that's what I remember, and that's what I valued. I value all of it really, but this is what I took from that and gave to myself. And as a parent, my choice is always to do the same. I have space for her to make her own decisions, my child. And that even when I don't like a choice that she makes, it's her choice. I think the way I do it a little differently than my parents is I express how I feel about it. Because I always wanted to know how my parents felt about something, and they didn't always tell me, even when I asked. They didn't want me to make a decision on what they felt. However, then I questioned and wondered, and I didn't know how they felt. And sometimes it would help me make a better decision if I knew how they felt. So I share with my daughter, especially if she's willing to hear, how I feel about a decision that she is making. I offer what I would do in that circumstance. I share about why I feel that way. I share about what I wish for her and what I would, and why I feel that way. And then, but then I'm just here to support her, and it's absolutely, and I openly, wholeheartedly, in my expanded state, I'm always thriving to be in that space of expansion within. I check that when I'm sharing this way. And if I'm not in that expanded state and I feel all tight and scared, and then I don't always do this, but when I remember and remind myself, which is my goal every time, and I do bring myself to this expanded state more and more and more. And most often when we're talking about decisions that she wants and choices that she wants to make, I'm not feeling angry about it. I might feel concerned and fear, so then I remember to go back to the expanded state if I'm not already in it, which is my choice always, to choose expansion, love, space of flow. So I'll just tell her these things, and I'll explain to her, this is really ultimately your decision, and I'm here to support you no matter what happens, no matter. And then it'll give her different scenarios to think about and to mull about, and then she makes a decision. When she was really little, I wanted her to go to Chinese class. I was so, she has to go, she has to learn Chinese. She has to learn about her culture. I was so dead set on that. And it wasn't really feeling right to her. She was very little, 3 years old, maybe a little younger. She was 3, about, maybe a little, yeah, maybe just about turning 3. Maybe a little bit. I can't remember exactly, but she was around 3. And I would take her there, and she would go in, and it would be okay. But she wasn't she was always happy, but she just wasn't really taking it in. She wasn't embodying this. And this was her culture. She obviously didn't need it. But I wanted her to need it. So I kept taking her. And then after a few classes, she started not wanting to go and speaking up and telling me she really didn't want to be there. And expressing that the environment was just not comfortable for her. So then I would sit in the classes with her thinking that was better. And it was better. It supported her need to experience what it was like to be in an environment that didn't feel comfortable sensorially to her. And knowing that someone was in the room, and at any moment she could leave if she felt the need to. So that was better. But she still wasn't embodying the classes. So eventually we stopped. And I know people listening to this might say, or I don't know this, but maybe some people who are listening to this might say something like, well, you didn't have her follow through. You didn't teach her on commitment. But what I did do was allow her to make her own decision, because I don't want to push her to a point where she's just doing it for me. Oh, I'll just do it for her. She's giving her power away. I observed every class we went to, and finally, on the drive home, I asked her, what are you getting from this? What is this class about for you? That's what I said. I said, what is this class about for you? She had no words. She just smiled. I said, Haley, what is this class for you? Do you like it? Yes, Mommy. Is it fun? Sometimes. And fun is where it's at, right? Sometimes fun. So then we talked about that, and it was too much stimulation in the room. And even though she was learning, well, not really learning, she was learning that it was okay to be in her expanded state, she was still not sure how to not be overstimulated by all of the stuff going on around her. And I was learning this with her. So this was an experience she was just not ready to have. And so even though I wanted her to have it, it wasn't more important for her to embody the Chinese culture. It was more important for her to physically feel safe. So, we did different things. We talked about it. She drew some pictures about it. And what I realized was that it was more important for her to physically, sensorially feel safe, because we could learn the Chinese culture on our own, which is what we did. So I allowed her to feel empowered, and we stopped the Chinese classes. And I guess why I'm saying all of this to you is that as a parent, I gave her the option to choose. And when I wasn't giving her the option to choose, I was wanting to control it. And it wasn't about her. I thought it was about her, but it wasn't. It was about what I wanted her to have, what I felt she needed, or what I thought she needed, not even what I felt she needed. Because when I felt what she needed, it was that she just wanted to feel sensorially and physically safe. What I thought she needed was she had to learn her culture. She needed to learn Chinese. She had to be around more Chinese people. Maybe for someone else that is what they need, but it wasn't what she needed, especially not in that time. So what is it that makes us feel as parents that we need to do that? It's our own need. Not all the time, but I would say many times. And maybe just question that, just observe that it's our own need, something that we feel, we know, or think that we know. It's not what we feel, it's what we think is what's best. It's just from conditioning of, well, I know what's best, and I know she needs this because this is what I read in books, this is what people tell me, this is what I have been told, this is what I have been taught, so this must be true. It wasn't true for her in that moment. And she knew. And I didn't want my young child to feel like she had to do something just because I felt I wanted her to. I hope this is making some sense to you. So this is exciting because as a child now, look at from that perspective. How empowering is that? Is it really going to be, has it hurt my daughter to not take Chinese classes? No, it has not. Not at all. Has it hurt my daughter in any way for her to not be around Chinese people at the age of 3? A little bit. I feel like it has created a little bit of throughout the years where she's wondered about herself. But I think everyone goes through that in a way, where we wonder about ourselves. Where do we belong in the world? And who are we really? Maybe being around the Chinese people would have been, at that age, would have been better for her. Maybe not. But she's had other experiences where she has been around families who are Chinese. So it has helped to have that experience of as she got older. So again, what was more important was her feeling sensorially safe than having the experience of the Chinese culture at that time. But feeling it from her point of view, she then in that moment learned that I found value in my daughter at 3 years old, making her own decisions because of what she's feeling. I find that empowering and more valuable than wanting her to do what I think Because also what my daughter was learning was that sharing how we feel about things with each other is valuable too. I would love to say that from that moment on, and really even younger, I mean, I let her decide a lot of things when she was even younger than that. I just feel like that has helped her be a very confident decision maker, and she really, really is a confident decision maker. Yeah. And let's talk about this from the perspective of someone else, like someone working with children. Where does it come from that we feel like we have to make the decisions for the children all the time? Well, it comes from our bosses and their bosses and their bosses. We want to do our job well. We don't want our children, our students, to suffer, or whoever we're working with. And parents, same thing. We want to do our job well as parents. We don't want our children to suffer. They're not suffering, though, in the way that we feel that they are. Again, it's about our need to not see them suffer. As a teacher, it's our need to not be the one, our fault. We don't want it to be our fault. We don't want our boss to say, you didn't do the right thing. You didn't follow the protocol. Your students aren't doing well. It is your fault. But truth be known, if we're always telling everyone what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, how are they ever to make decisions in a certain point of circumstance? We have to let them fall sometimes. We have to let them make mistakes and not do well in order to do well. I mean, when babies are learning to crawl, they fall down, they get back up. When we're learning how to ride a bike, we fall down, we get back up. Right? When flowers grow, sometimes there's things in the way, but they continue to grow. You know, when you see flowers growing through the cracks in sidewalks, well, there are definite roadblocks, but they still grow. So our children are still growing. When I used to teach in this elementary school in Punta Gorda, Florida, it was an amazing school. The principal I loved her dearly, dearly. We used to talk about children growing this way instead of this way. And this way was the academic, getting A's and B's, passing tests. This way was the expansive way. This way was the growing in our worldly experiences, in our hearts, in our inner knowing, in our being in the world. Now, she didn't use those phrases, but that's exactly what it means. So when our bosses or the bosses of their bosses and their bosses are telling them, but they have to pass the test, they have to do well, they have to get A's, our schools have to be A+ schools. They're wanting them to grow this way, but our children cannot only grow this way in the long run of their life without growing this way. And many, many, many children cannot grow this way in the short term of tests and grades without growing this way. This is what my passion has been my entire life, really, but ever since starting working with children when I was 17 years old. And it's about growth in the most massive, most beautiful way in life. And it is. When children grow in their being, in their way of being in the world, in their empowerment and knowing of who they are, and being amazing decision makers and feeling power in that, even if it's not going to turn out exactly the way they thought, but maybe better. Maybe having a mistake, falling and failing opens the doorway to something even bigger and better than what they had imagined or thought. Because what they imagine, it's always going to be better if we continue to expand and walk in that space. That is what we need to focus on instead of wanting to control it to make it all be perfect. We just want our children to do well. We want the best for them, no matter who we are working and being and living with children. So the work with us is to let it be, let go, surrender, and for us to expand in that heart space and to support and guide them into their space of empowerment, inner empowerment, not control, allowance, following their flow, listening to their heart and kindly expressing what they need, or assertively with love expressing what they need and desire and going after that instead of, okay, I'll just do that because that's what I'm supposed to do, and I'll follow these guidelines because they tell me that it's better than what I'm feeling in here. Because there is always a way to follow a certain rule or guideline, even if you have to tweak it a little bit to feel right to you. And if that rule or guideline is totally not what feels right, it's not what feels right, that's okay too. Sounds a little belligerent, but it's not. If you're in the flow of it and you're not fighting it, it's not belligerence. It's truth. And truth, people listen to truth. They just do. It's like this magical thing. People will listen to the truth of you, and they will. They do. And so I guess I'm just saying I understand. I've been there a million times over as the parent, as the teacher, and as the child, because I know when I have not been given the opportunity to make my own decision as the child, for example, at school, it deflates who I am. That's what happened. It deflated me. I had to give my power away because I didn't know. I didn't know that I could find it within me to speak up what it was that somewhere inside of me I needed something else, something different, something more, something slightly different. I didn't know. I just felt wrong. I thought it was wrong. I thought I was wrong. I thought there was something wrong with me. So as parents, we don't want our children to feel that. As teachers, we don't want our students to feel that. We don't. We want them to all feel good and right and strong and empowered. But when we're always fixing it for them, that's where this comes from. Wow. 23 minutes into this, and I'm getting, where does this come from? It's because we want to fix it for them. We want to make it better for them. We want to make it the best for them. In fixing it for them, we take their power away. We just do. I have worked in Montessori schools. That was a lot of years of my teaching and my teaching experience. And Montessori is big on empowering children. It's not about just letting them do whatever they want, whenever they want, which although that's not a horrible thing either, it's about guiding them to choose and make decisions that work well for them, as well as the whole community that they're in. And I loved that about Montessori because that is the truth. That is a life skill, period. So how do we shift this as parents when we're feeling so much anxiety and fear and worry about our kids or teachers or those who work with kids or grandparents? Or aunts and uncles, cousins, friends. How do we shift that? Well, we first get into that expanded state ourselves, and we take a step back, and we allow our kids to be where they are, and we love them where they are. We love ourselves where we are in this space of confusion, fear, concern, worry. We love ourselves and our children in this space. And then what I would do if a client came to me is I would work through visualizations or meditations and connect to that. And either ask some questions that can take you back to where that belief started from, or these are two ways I can start, or I would ask you to separate from each emotion, fear, and ask it to separate from you so that you can talk to it and gain some understanding. So either way, you're going to get the same information, possibly. You're going to get what you need in the moment. That would be the first step that I would take. And you can do this on your own, but I'd be happy to support you as well, because I love this. And once you as the parent have separated from this emotion, you've detached yourself from these, like, let's just say fear, and you have gone back to where maybe this fearful thought or belief was planted into your brain, into your thinking space, because that becomes supported by experiences and meaning, then you can kind of see, because every single time it connects and correlates with your child's situation or your child's fear or anxiety or whatever's happening, every single time. So there's this energy, this connection going on. Then you start from there. And you start to unravel that belief, and replace it with different beliefs or a different belief. You start to understand it and have a different relationship with it, and it can support your life, which, as you begin to shift that fear about your child or the situation that's going on, your child begins to shift too, without you even doing anything yet or connecting with your child in any way on the physical way yet. And then from there, you can begin to connect with your child and talk about what's concerning you and what's going on. And you'll have a different perspective from there. And your child will feel that. They might not be aware of it consciously in their brain. They'll be aware of it consciously in their heart. They may be aware, but they may not. And so I started with, where does all this come from? Where does all this fear, anxiety, and wanting to tell our children what to do? And well, it comes from our own conditioning and fearful beliefs that we took on, some thoughts that created experiences that supported the fear. And then our children are born and they have these circumstances, and we perceive and view them through the fear. And then our children are experiencing their own circumstance of fear, or, for example, that has been planted into their thoughts from any number of situations. That doesn't really matter, because we can work with them from there. And then they do connect. They directly connect. And then they have meaning from it, and it builds, and those experiences build and support that belief. And so it just continues. But it doesn't have to, now that we know where it comes from. And now that we know that we don't have to do things the way we're told all the time. We can just shift it a little bit, or we can share our concern or need and we can offer an alternative way. We can, as parents, as teachers, as caretakers, and as children. We absolutely can. And that's empowering. And I promise you, if it is your truth, people will listen to that. So I'd love to invite you to connect with me if this has resonated with you and you're feeling like, yes, that, connect with me. Set up your call with me. And the magic will continue. The inspired way of living an empowered life from within will continue with you and your child. And yeah, things will shift. I invite you to connect with me and go from there. Quite excited. Thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to meet you. Have an amazing day.